The seeker of truth drifted through the black, her hull humming with the quiet thrum of a ship that had seen better centuries. Below, the science decks were a chaos of motion and light, every console active, every crew member engaged in a dance of discovery that had consumed them for the past 6 cycles. Chief Science Officer Vextel stood at the center of the bridge, his 3 primary manipulators hovering over the primary display. The signal pulsed in steady rhythm, a heartbeat in the void. It shouldn't have existed. The quadrant had been marked sterile, a graveyard of dead worlds and colder stars, abandoned after the collapse of something so old that even the Xylothian archives called it the Age of Falling Empires. Again, Vextel commanded. The secondary display refreshed. The signal remained, stronger now if anything. Commander Thessa approached from her command throne, her scaled face unreadable. "You've been chasing this signature for 7 cycles, Vextel. The Science Council will not approve another extension." Vextel turned, his eye clusters focusing on his captain. "This isn't background radiation. This isn't a dying star or a quantum fluctuation. This is technology, artificial, deliberate." Thessa's mandibles clicked in mild irritation. Technology from what civilization? Every species in this spiral arm is accounted for. Every one of them fell or fled or vanished, Vextel interrupted. The humans. The name hung in the air like a ghost. Thessa's expression shifted. Fear. No, something older, respect perhaps. The humans are a myth, Vextel, stories told to frighten hatchlings. They were extinct before our ancestors learned to write. Extinct, Vextel repeated, or simply, away. He gestured to the display. The signal's waveform rotated, revealing patterns that no natural process could create. This is a navigation beacon. Low power, passive. It's been transmitting for longer than our civilization has existed. It's calling to something. Thessa studied the readings. Her silence was answer enough. "Commander," she finally said, "what you're suggesting is impossible. If the humans had survived, we would know. They were the architects of the Dominion. They commanded thousands of worlds. They were destroyed," Vextel said, "by the Hive. The historical records are clear on that point. But the records also say the humans fought for 1,000 cycles before falling. 1,000 cycles of warfare against an enemy that consumed stars. And then at the end they simply disappeared. No final battle, no surrender, no dead, just silence." Thessa's spines flared in agitation. "You think they escaped?" "I think," Vextel said, "that the signal is coming from a location that matches the coordinates of the final human fleet deployment. And I think we should investigate." Thessa considered. Her authority was absolute, but so was her loyalty to science. The Xylothian people had built their empire on knowledge. To ignore a potential discovery of this magnitude would be a betrayal of everything they represented. "Plot a course," she said. "But if this is a waste of resources, you'll answer to the Council personally." Vextel bowed his head, already turning back to his instruments. "I'll accept that consequence." 3 cycles later, the seeker of truth emerged from fold space into a region of darkness so complete that the bridge crew collectively gasped. The stars were wrong here. Dimmer, older, as though the light itself had grown tired. And there, hanging in the void like a monument to a forgotten age, was the fleet. Vextel had expected ruins. He'd prepared himself for debris fields and shattered hulls, the echoes of a civilization's final stand. What he found instead was a formation of warships so perfect, so pristine, that they might have been constructed yesterday. The flagship dominated the center, a massive, angular vessel bristling with weapon systems that Vextel couldn't even begin to classify. Surrounding it were hundreds of smaller ships, arranged in defensive patterns that spoke of an imminent battle that never came. "Reading power signatures," one of the bridge technicians reported. "Low-level, emergency reserves only, they're in hibernation." Thessa stepped forward, her eyes locked on the display. "Hibernation, For how long? 20,000 years, Commander. Give or take a century. The bridge went quiet. Vextel felt his heart chambers contract. 20,000 years. His people had been discovering fire when these ships had entered their slumber. They had been carved into stone when the humans had turned off their engines and waited. Life signs? Thessa asked. Thousands human, all in stasis. Thessa's mandibles clacked in what might have been alarm. Thousands. The humans have been sleeping for 100 centuries, and they're still alive. They were preserving themselves, Vextel said. Their technology is beyond anything we've ever encountered. The stasis fields alone. Get us closer, Thessa commanded. I want a full survey of that flagship, and I want it done carefully. These humans may be asleep, but I'm not eager to be the one who wakes them. The expedition team boarded the flagship through a docking port that opened with a hiss of atmosphere. Atmosphere, Vextel noted, that was still breathable. The humans had maintained their air for longer than his species had maintained their written history. Inside, the ship was a cathedral of technology. Every surface gleamed, every corridor was perfectly lit. The architecture was stark and efficient, designed with a purpose that Vextel couldn't quite grasp. He felt small walking through these halls, like a child exploring the ruins of a temple. They reached the command deck through a series of hatches that opened automatically, as though the ship had been expecting them. And there, in the center of a vast circular chamber, they found the commander. The stasis pod was larger than the others, raised on a platform that seemed designed to draw attention. Through the frost-covered surface, Vextel could see the figure within. A male human, tall and powerfully built, his face locked in an expression of grim determination. The Admiral, Vextel breathed. The records show a commander of this fleet, a legend among the humans. He was supposed to be the one who led the final defense. Thessa approached the pod, her eye clusters scanning the readings. He's alive, all functions nominal. The pod is in a deep sleep cycle, but it could be awakened with the right command. Then we wake him, Vextel said. Thessa turned to face him, her expression sharp. Are you insane? This is a human commander. The humans are not. They weren't a peaceful species, Vextel. They were warriors. They conquered half the galaxy. We need to know what happened here, Vextel interrupted. We need to know why they vanished. If the hive is still out there, we need to be prepared. This man might be the only one who can tell us the truth. Thessa considered. Her spines flared again, a sign of internal conflict. I'm going to regret this, she said. She reached for the pod's activation panel. The figure inside stirred. His eyes opened, human eyes, dark and intense, and focused immediately on the alien standing before him. There was no confusion, no disorientation, just cold recognition. You're not the enemy, the human said. His voice was deep and resonant, even through the translation systems. But you're not my people either. Vextel stepped forward. I am Chief Science Officer Vextel of the Xylothian Confederation. We found your fleet. We woke you. The human sat up slowly, his gaze sweeping across the command deck. He took in the Xylothians, the technology, the window showing the void beyond. How long? He asked. 20,000 years, Vextel said. The human didn't react. His face remained stone. 20,000 years, he repeated. Then the war is over. Thessa raised her primary manipulator. War? What war? The humans vanished from the galaxy. We assumed you were extinct. We were preserving, the human said. We were waiting, the enemy we fought, the hive, it was never truly defeated. It was pushed back but not destroyed. We knew it would return, and when it did, we needed to be ready. Vextel felt his heart go cold. The hive, it still exists. Yes, the human said, and I suspect it knows you found us, which means your time is running out. He stood, stepping out of the pod with a grace that belied his centuries of immobility. I am Admiral Thorn, he said, and I have been waiting for a very long time to wake up. You want to know why we vanished, Xylothian. You want to know what we were running from." He pointed through the viewing window at the endless dark. "The hive is the reason, and it's coming back. The only question is whether you're ready to fight or whether you're ready to die." The command deck fell silent. Vextel felt his appendages go cold at the edges, a biological response he hadn't experienced since his academy days. The human stood before them, his form somehow larger than it should have been, his presence pressing down on the room like gravity. "The hive," Thessa repeated. "There have been rumors for centuries, whispers in the dark between star systems, but no one has ever confirmed." "It's real," Thorn interrupted, "and it's hungry. It consumes everything it touches, biospheres, civilizations, stars themselves." He stepped toward the viewing window, his reflection ghosting over the scattered light of the fleet. "That's why we built this armada. That's why we fought for 1,000 years. And that's why we're still here waiting while your people have been growing fat on the bones of dead worlds." Thessa's spines flared in offense, but Vextel held up a calming appendage. "Admiral, with respect, we came here seeking knowledge. We didn't expect to find living humans. We didn't expect to find you. The hive has not been seen in our space for millennia, if it truly exists." "Then you've been lucky," Thorn said. "Or it's been waiting, growing, building. The hive doesn't attack without purpose. It learns, it adapts. And when it's ready, it strikes with force that you cannot imagine." He turned away from the window, his gaze sweeping across the Xylothian crew. "You woke me. That means you are connected to this now. Whether you like it or not, the signal we've been transmitting has been received by something, and it won't take long for the hive to track it back to you." Vextel's heart chambers contracted further. "The signal, the navigation beacon, that was you." "We wanted to be found," Thorn said. "When the right species came along with the right technology, the right curiosity, we would wake. We would try again. We would finish what we started." Thessa stepped forward, her primary manipulator raised. "We didn't come here to fight a war, Admiral. We came here to explore. We are scientists, not soldiers." "You are soldiers now," Thorn said. "Whether you want to be or not. The hive doesn't distinguish between combatants and civilians. It consumes everything. Your species, your worlds, your history. When it arrives, you'll be grateful for the humans who prepared for this moment." He walked past them, his footsteps echoing through the silent command deck. "Now, show me your ship. Show me what you know about the hive, about the galaxy, about what's happened in the time we've been sleeping. And then we'll talk about survival." The shuttle ride back to the Seeker of Truth was tense. Thorn sat in silence, his eyes fixed on the viewport, watching his fleet drift past like a necropolis of ancient giants. Vextel tried to read the human's expression, impossible, of course. Human faces were too expressive, too alien, but he could sense something beneath the surface. Grief, perhaps, or rage, or something older, more profound. "1,000 years," Thorn said abruptly. "We fought for 1,000 years. We lost 20 billion people. We lost worlds that had been our homes for centuries, and still we couldn't stop them." Vextel hesitated. "What happened? The records are unclear. The human dominion fell." "Because we let it," Thorn said. "We pulled back. We consolidated. We built this fleet and we made a choice. A hard choice. We chose to preserve the best of us, the strongest of us, the ones who could carry on the fight when the time came." He turned to face Vextel. "You're looking at the survivors of the human species. Not the only survivors. There are colonies scattered across the galaxy, hiding, waiting, praying, but the best, the most dangerous, the ones who will never surrender." Vextel felt a chill run through his appendages. 20,000 years. You've been asleep for 20,000 years. How do you know the hive is still out there? "Because we left it that way," Thorn said. "We couldn't destroy it, not completely, but we could wound it. We could force it into dormancy, and then we could wait, and we could prepare. And when it woke up, we would be ready to finish the job." The shuttle docked with the Seeker of Truth. Thorn stepped into the Xylothian vessel with the confidence of a commander entering his own ship. He assessed the corridor, the lighting, the layout. Vextal had seen many species visit the Seeker, but none had looked at it the way Thorn did, like he was cataloging its weaknesses. "You have good technology," Thorn said. "Efficient, clean, but it's designed for peace." "Peace is what we've known," Vextal said. "For 10,000 years, the Xylothian Confederation has existed without major conflict." "Then you've been lucky," Thorn repeated. "But luck runs out, always. That's the lesson of history." The bridge was quiet when they entered. Thessa had already returned, her expression guarded. She didn't meet Thorn's eyes. "The science team has begun cataloging your fleet, Admiral. The ship systems are remarkably well preserved. We're seeing technologies that shouldn't exist, power sources that defy our understanding of physics." "You're seeing the work of a species that spent 1,000 years fighting for survival," Thorn said. "We learned to push boundaries because there was no other option. We learned to create because we had to destroy." Thessa shifted uncomfortably. "And your crew, the thousands of humans in stasis?" "They'll wake when I call them," Thorn said. "When it's time, but not before." Vextal felt the tension in the room. "Admiral, we want to help, we want to understand, but we need to know, what do you plan to do? What happens now?" Thorn turned to face the viewing window. The human fleet hung in the darkness, silent and patient. "Now I finish what I started. I find the hive, I eliminate it, and I ensure that my people have a future." "And us?" Thessa asked. "What happens to the Xylothians?" Thorn considered her. His face was unreadable. "You have a choice. You can help me, and when I'm done, I'll make sure your people are remembered, or you can run, and I'll forget you ever existed." The days that followed were a blur of activity. Thorn moved through the Seeker of Truth with the energy of a predator waking from hibernation. He studied the Xylothians' records, absorbed their knowledge, and began to piece together the state of the galaxy. The hive, as he'd suspected, had been dormant, but there were signs of activity at the edges of Xylothian space. Disappearances, strange signals, unusual radiation patterns, the kind of things that a peaceful species might dismiss as natural phenomena. "They're stirring," Thorn said one evening, standing on the observation deck with Vextal. "They've been growing in the dark places, the places no one looks." Vextal felt his appendages tremble. "How can you be sure?" "Because I know them," Thorn said. "I fought them for 1,000 years. I know their patterns, their rhythms, their hunger. They've been feeding on the edges of the galaxy, consuming what we left behind. And now they've grown strong enough to move again." He turned to face Vextal. "Your people are in danger. Every species in this region of space is in danger. The hive will consume them, and then it will spread. And if I don't stop it here, there won't be anything left to stop it anywhere." Vextal hesitated. "What do you need from us?" "Everything," Thorn said. "Your resources, your knowledge, your ships, but most of all, I need your trust. Because when I wake my crew and we go to war, I need to know that you'll be there with us." Vextal looked out at the human fleet, the ancient warships that had waited 20,000 years. He thought of his people, his civilization, the peaceful empire that had existed for so long, and he thought of the darkness beyond, waiting to consume them all. "I can't speak for my people," Vextal said, "but I will speak for myself. I will help you, Admiral, because I believe you're right." Thorn's expression softened slightly. "Thank you. That means more than you know." He turned back to the void, his hand resting on the viewing glass. "Tomorrow I wake my crew, and then we begin." The inner chamber of the flagship was a cathedral of technology, its walls lined with stasis pods that stretched upward into darkness. Vextal stood at the entrance, Thessa beside him, watching as Thorn approached the central console. The human's footsteps echoed in the vast space, each one measured, deliberate. "You're sure about this?" Thessa asked. "Once they wake, there's no going back." "I've been sure for 20,000 years," Thorn said. This is what we were waiting for. He placed his hand on the console. The surface glowed beneath his fingers, ancient circuits coming to life. A holographic interface appeared, displaying a series of symbols that Vextel didn't recognize. Thorn's fingers moved across them with practiced ease. Reactivation sequence initiated, a synthetic voice announced. All systems nominal, waking in progress. The pods began to hiss. One by one, the frost-covered surfaces cleared, revealing the humans within. Faces, young, old, male, female, emerged from the darkness. Eyes opened. Chests rose and fell. Vextel watched in wonder. He'd heard the legends of human warriors, the brutal efficiency of their armies, the unbreakable will that had made them the greatest power in the galaxy. But seeing them wake, seeing them emerge from their centuries-long slumber, was something else entirely. The first humans stepped out of their pods. They moved with controlled precision, their eyes sweeping the room, assessing threats. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Their commander was standing before them, and that was enough. "Report," Thorn said. A tall woman with silver-streaked hair stepped forward. She wore a uniform that bore the marks of high rank. "Admiral, the fleet is at 92% operational capacity. All crews reporting in. We're ready." "Good." Thorn's voice was calm, but Vextel could sense the steel beneath it. "We have guests, the Xylothians. They found us. They woke us, and they've agreed to help." The woman's eyes flicked toward the Xylothian delegation. Vextel felt a moment of unease. These were warriors from a fallen age, legends given form. Their judgment would be swift and absolute. "Xylothians," the woman said, "we know of your species, peaceful, intellectual. You've avoided conflict for millennia." "We have," Thessa said, "but we're not blind. We've seen the signs, the darkness on the edge of our space." "Then you know why we're here," the woman said. "The hive is returning. It's been sleeping, but it's waking now. And when it does, it will consume everything you've built." Thessa's spines flared. "We've heard the warnings, but we need to know, can you stop it?" "We stopped it before," Thorn said. "We can stop it again." He turned to face his crew. The room went silent, every human at attention. Thorn walked among them, meeting each pair of eyes. 20,000 years ago we lost the war," he said. "We couldn't defeat the hive, not completely. We had to retreat, to hide, to wait, but we never surrendered, we never gave up. We knew that one day we would have another chance." He stopped in the center of the room. "That day is now. The hive is waking. It's been growing in the dark, feeding on the worlds we couldn't protect, and it's stronger than before. But so are we. We've had 20,000 years to prepare. We've had 20,000 years to plan, and now we're going to finish what we started." The humans shouted in response. A single word, repeated over and over. Vextel didn't understand the language, but he understood the meaning. "Victory, victory, victory." Thorn raised his hand and the shouting stopped. "We have allies now, the Xylothians. They will fight beside us. They will help us win this war, and when it's over they will have earned their place in history." The briefing took place in the flagship's war room. Vextel stood at the back, watching as Thorn and his commanders laid out their strategy. The maps were unlike anything he'd ever seen, not static displays but living representations of space, updating in real time. "The hive has 3 primary concentrations," Thorn explained. "These are the nursery worlds. They breed, they feed, they grow. If we can destroy them, we can cut off the hive's ability to replenish its forces." The silver-haired woman, Commander Hayes, Vextel had learned, nodded. "But getting to them won't be easy. The hive has defenses. Massive fleets, orbital platforms, shield technology that we've never seen before." "We've seen it before," Thorn said. "We fought it for 1,000 years. We know how to break through." He highlighted a region of space near the Xylothian home world. "The hive is here. It's moving toward Xyloth. The attack will come within 6 cycles, maybe less." Thessa stepped forward, her face ashen. "We don't have enough ships. We don't have enough weapons. We can't defend our home against an enemy like that." "Not alone," Thorn said, "but you won't be alone, you'll have us." He turned to the display. "We'll intercept the hive before it reaches Xyloth. We'll engage them in open space, where we have the advantage, and we'll buy you time to evacuate your civilians." "Evacuate?" Thessa's voice was sharp. "You're talking about abandoning our worlds." "I'm talking about surviving," Thorn said. "You can't defend what's already lost, but you can preserve what matters, your people, your culture, your future." Thessa's mandibles clicked in frustration. "And if we fight, if we stand with you?" "Then you'll die," Thorn said. "But you'll die fighting, and you'll have the satisfaction of knowing that the hive didn't win. That's the choice, Commander, run and live, or fight and maybe die." Thessa was silent for a long moment. "And you, what do you choose?" "I choose to fight," Thorn said. "I've always chosen to fight." The next cycle was a blur of activity. Thorn's crew mobilized with a speed that amazed Vextal. They activated the fleet systems, ran diagnostics, and prepared for war. The ancient warships came to life, their engines burning bright in the darkness. Vextal watched from the observation deck as the humans worked. They moved with a purpose that bordered on obsessive. Every action was deliberate, every decision calculated. They were a species forged in fire, shaped by centuries of conflict. "I don't understand," Vextal said. "They've been asleep for 20,000 years. They should be disoriented, confused, but they're not. They're ready." "Because they were waiting," Thorn said, appearing beside him. "We knew this moment would come. We prepared for it. We trained for it. And now we're going to finish what we started." Vextal turned to face the human. "Admiral, I need to ask you something. The war, the hive, how did it start? Why did they attack?" Thorn was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was distant. "We don't know. They appeared one day without warning. They destroyed everything in their path. We tried to negotiate. We tried to understand. But they don't communicate. They don't reason. They just consume." "And you think you can defeat them?" "I know we can," Thorn said. "Because we've done it before, and because we'll do whatever it takes. That's what makes us human." He turned to leave, then paused. "Get some rest, Vextal. Tomorrow the war begins." The human fleet moved through fold space like a school of ancient predators, their hulls gleaming with energy that hadn't been seen in centuries. Vextal stood on the bridge of the Seeker of Truth, watching the tactical display as the ships arranged themselves in formation. Thorn had taken command of his flagship, the Valiant, and was already issuing orders through a comm channel that cut through the static of fold space. The galaxy had changed in 20,000 years. Star maps had to be updated, gravitational anomalies accounted for, new empires navigated around. But Thorn's focus never wavered. He was a man on a mission. "The hive's forward elements are 7 cycles out," Hayes reported from the Valiant's bridge. "They're moving faster than we anticipated. We'll intercept them at the Crescent Nebula." Thessa's spines flared. "Crescent is a dead zone. No star systems, no planets, it's a graveyard." "Perfect," Thorn said. "No civilians to worry about. No collateral damage. Just open space and an enemy that needs to die." Vextal felt his appendages tighten. Thorn's tone was matter of fact, almost cold. It was the voice of a man who had made peace with the horrors of war. "Admiral," Thessa said, "our fleet is smaller than yours. We can provide support, but if this turns into a prolonged engagement—" "It won't be prolonged," Thorn said. "I'll end it quickly. The hive is powerful, but it's not intelligent. Not in the way we are. It relies on numbers, on brute force. We have strategy, we have tactics, and we have something else." "What?" Vextal asked. "Experience," Thorn said. 20,000 years of planning. 20,000 years of learning from our mistakes." The battle began at the edge of the nebula. The hive emerged from fold space in a cascade of energy, their ships grotesque and organic, pulsing with an inner light that made Vextal's stomach turn. They moved in formation, their hulls bristling with weapons that looked like the teeth of some ancient predator. "Engage," Thorn ordered. The human fleet responded instantly. Ship after ship opened fire, their weapons cutting through the darkness in brilliant arcs of destruction. The Hive's ships absorbed the punishment, their organic hulls repairing themselves even as they were torn apart. But the humans didn't stop. They pressed the attack with a ferocity that Vextal had never seen. They threw themselves at the Hive, sacrificing ship after ship to break through the enemy's defenses. "What are they doing?" Thessa demanded. "They're going to get themselves killed." "They're doing what they need to do," Vextal said. "They're making an opening." And then he saw it. Thorn's flagship, the Valiant, was moving through the gap in the Hive's formation. It was flanked by a squadron of smaller ships, all of them moving with a precision that could only be the result of centuries of training. "Prepare the device," Thorn ordered. "Now." Hayes's voice came over the comm, sharp and urgent. "We need more time, Admiral. The Hive is reacting faster than expected." "Make time," Thorn said. "I don't care what it takes." The human ships threw themselves at the Hive with renewed intensity. They weren't trying to win. They weren't trying to survive. They were buying moments. Vextal watched in horror as ship after ship fell, their crews sacrificing themselves to give their commander the time he needed. The Xylothians were in shock, their crews frozen at their stations. "Commander," Vextal said, "we have to do something, we have to help them." "What can we do?" Thessa asked. "We're outnumbered, we're outgunned, We can fight," Vextal said. "We can stand beside them, that's what they're doing for us." Thessa was silent for a long moment. Then, with a flick of her appendages, she issued an order. "All weapons fire at will, target the Hive's support ships, give the humans a path." The battle raged for 3 cycles. The Xylothian ships fought with a courage that surprised even themselves. They took losses, but they held the line. And through it all, Thorn's flagship moved steadily toward its goal. "The device is ready," Hayes announced. "Admiral, we have one shot." "Then take it," Thorn said. A beam of energy shot from the Valiant's forward cannon, striking the center of the Hive formation. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the beam expanded, ripping through space like a tear in reality. The Hive's ships were consumed in a wave of destruction, their organic hulls disintegrating into nothing. Vextal stared at the display, his heart's pounding. He'd never seen anything like it. The weapon was devastating, terrifying in its power. "Fold space event," one of the technicians reported. "The Hive is retreating. They're collapsing their presence in this sector." "Pursue them," Thorn ordered. "Don't let them get away." But it was too late. The Hive's ships vanished into the void, fleeing into the darkness from which they'd come. The battle was over. The aftermath was brutal. The human fleet had lost a third of its ships, and thousands of crew had been killed. The Xylothians had suffered even worse, their smaller fleet battered nearly to the breaking point. Vextal walked through the corridors of the Valiant, watching as the human crew tended to their wounded. There was no celebration, no victory song, just grim determination. "They'll be back," Thorn said, appearing beside him. "They always come back." "How do you do it?" Vextal asked. "How do you keep fighting? How do you watch your people die and not break?" Thorn was silent for a moment. "Because I have no other choice," he said. "Because if I break, everyone dies. That's the burden of command, Vextal. You carry the weight or you let it crush you. But you've been carrying it for 20,000 years. I'll carry it for 20,000 more if I have to." Thorn's eyes met his. "That's what it means to be human. We don't give up. We don't surrender. We keep fighting no matter what." Vextal felt something shift inside him, a sense of purpose he'd never known. "What happens now?" "Now we prepare," Thorn said. "The Hive is wounded but not defeated. They'll come back and they'll come back stronger, but we'll be ready. We'll always be ready." "To fight." "To win," Thorn said. "There's a difference." The Valiant drifted through the dark, her systems humming with quiet efficiency. Thorne stood on the bridge, gazing at the tactical display that showed the remnants of his fleet. They'd lost too many ships in the Crescent Nebula, too many crews, but they'd won. The Hive had retreated and the Zylothian home world was safe. For now. Hayes approached, her expression unreadable. "Admiral, we've completed the casualty reports. The Titan and the Dauntless are beyond repair. We'll need to scuttle them." "Do it," Thorne said, "and redistribute their crews among the remaining ships. We can't afford to lose anyone else." "Yes, sir." Hayes paused. "The Zylothians want to know what comes next. They're nervous. They've never faced an enemy like this." "Neither have we," Thorne said. "Not in a very long time." He turned away from the display. "Commander, send a message to the Zylothian leadership. Tell them I want to meet. I have a proposal." The meeting took place on neutral ground, a small Zylothian station orbiting a dead star. Thessa was there, along with a delegation of Zylothian elders, their scaled faces etched with concern. Thorne stood before them, his presence commanding even in the sterile conference room. "The Hive will return," he said, "and when it does, it won't be alone. It will come with more ships, more forces, more determination. We need to be ready." "And how do you propose we do that?" one of the elders asked. "We've seen your fleet. It's barely a shadow of what it once was." "It's a shadow," Thorne agreed. "But it's a shadow that can grow. There are more human ships scattered across the galaxy, sleeper fleets, hidden bases. We have resources you can't imagine." The elders exchanged glances. "You want us to help you find them?" "I want you to help me use them," Thorne said. "The Zylothians are the dominant power in this region. You have the infrastructure, the supply lines, the political connections. With your support, we can rebuild. We can create a force that can destroy the Hive once and for all." Thessa stepped forward. "And what will we get in return? Protection, promises." "Survival," Thorne said. "The Hive won't stop with us. It will consume your worlds, your people, your history. Everything you've built, everything you've created will be gone." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I can't promise you victory. War is unpredictable, but I can promise you something else. I can promise you that we'll fight until our last breath, that we'll never surrender, that we'll die before we let the Hive win." The elders were silent, then slowly Thessa nodded. "We'll support you, Admiral, for as long as it takes." The months that followed were a blur of activity. Thorne's fleet moved across the galaxy, reactivating hidden bases and reclaiming lost ships. The Zylothians provided everything they needed: resources, fuel, manpower. And gradually, the human fleet grew. Vextal became Thorne's closest advisor. He'd earned the humans' trust through countless cycles of work, and he'd grown to admire the Admiral's unwavering dedication. There were moments when Thorne seemed almost inhuman, cold, distant, consumed by his mission. But then there were other moments when he spoke of his crew with genuine warmth, when he laughed at a joke or shared a memory of his home world. Those were the moments that reminded Vextal that Thorne was still human. "You were a poet once," Vextal said one evening, watching Thorne work on a strategic map. Thorne looked up, his expression surprised. "What makes you say that?" "The way you speak, the way you describe things, there's a rhythm to it, a cadence." Vextal paused. "It's not the way a soldier talks." Thorne was silent for a long moment. "I was, a very long time ago, before the war, before the Hive, I wrote. I had a family, a home, a life." "What happened?" "The Hive happened," Thorne said. "They took everything. My family, my home, my future. I was a survivor. I was one of the lucky ones." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Lucky, that's what they called us." "I'm sorry," Vextal said. "I'm not," Thorne said. "Because of what happened, I found my purpose. I found my strength. I found the will to fight, to win, to survive." He turned back to the map. "And that's what I'll do, for as long as I'm needed." The fleet was ready. Thorn stood on the bridge of the Valiant, gazing at the formation of ships that stretched across the void. There were more than he'd ever commanded, more than he'd ever dreamed. "The Hive is massing for an attack," Hayes reported. "They're coming through the Crescent Nebula again, the same route as before." "Then we'll be waiting," Thorn said. "We'll show them what it means to fight humanity." The fleet began to move. Ship after ship, they surged forward, their engines burning bright against the darkness. "Admiral," Vextal said, "you said you would finish what you started. Is this it?" Thorn looked at him. His eyes were ancient, filled with the weight of 20,000 years. "This is it," he said. "This is the end, one way or another." The Crescent Nebula glowed with a sickly green light as the Hive emerged from Fold space. Vextal had never seen so many ships. They filled the void like an infestation, their organic hulls pulsing with an alien rhythm that set his teeth on edge. "They're here," Hayes announced. "Admiral, we have multiple contacts, hundreds, thousands. The sensors can't even count them." "They're breeding," Thorn said. "They've had millennia to grow, to expand, to prepare for this moment." The Valiant's weapons systems came online, their hum vibrating through the deck. "We have to hold them here. If they break through, the Zalothian home world is defenseless." Thessa's voice came over the comm. "Admiral, we're with you. Our fleet is ready." "Good," Thorn said. "Then let's show them what we're made of." The battle began with a cascade of energy. The human fleet opened fire, their weapons tearing into the Hive's formation. The Zalothian ships followed suit, their beam weapons cutting through the alien hulls with surgical precision. But the Hive didn't stop. They absorbed the punishment and kept coming, their ships crashing into the human lines with suicidal ferocity. "They're overwhelming us," Hayes reported. "We're taking heavy losses." "Hold the line," Thorn ordered. "We need more time." "Time for what?" Vextal demanded. Thorn turned to face him. His expression was grim. "For the device. The same weapon we used before, but we need to get closer. We need to be within range." "Within range?" Vextal stared at him. "That's suicide. There are thousands of Hive ships between us and their command structure." "I know," Thorn said, "but I've been waiting 20,000 years for this moment. I'm not going to let it slip away." The Valiant surged forward, her weapons blazing. The Hive responded with a fury that seemed almost personal. Ship after ship threw themselves at the flagship, their hulls bursting in brilliant arcs of destruction. But Thorn didn't waver. He stood on the bridge, his hands gripping the console, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Closer," he said, "closer." "Admiral, we're losing shield integrity," Hayes reported. "We can't take much more." "Then we don't take much more," Thorn said. "We push through." The Valiant shuddered as a blast struck her hull, tearing through the outer armor. Alarms blared on the bridge, but Thorn seemed unruffled. "Device is ready," a technician reported. "We have a clear shot." "Fire," Thorn ordered. The beam shot from the Valiant's forward cannon, cutting through the Hive's formation like a knife through flesh. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the beam expanded, ripping through the enemy ships with devastating power. "Direct hit," Hayes announced. "Their command structure is compromised." "Give me a visual," Thorn said. The display showed the heart of the Hive fleet. Where once there had been massive, organic ships, there was now nothing but debris. The Hive's command structure was gone. "Admiral, they're retreating," Hayes said. "The Hive is breaking." The remnants of the Hive fleet scattered, fleeing into the void. The humans didn't pursue. They didn't need to. They'd won. The battle was over, but the cost was staggering. Half the human fleet was gone. The Zalothian ships had suffered similar losses. Thorn stood on the bridge of the Valiant, gazing at the debris field. "We stopped them," Vextal said. "We actually stopped them." "Temporarily," Thorn said. "They'll be back, but next time we'll be ready." He turned to face his crew. His expression was tired, but there was a light in his eyes that Vextal hadn't seen before. Rest, Thorn said. Celebrate, you've earned it. Tomorrow we'll start rebuilding. The bridge erupted in cheers. Vextal watched as the humans celebrated their victory, their laughter echoing through the corridors of the Valiant. For the first time in millennia, they had hope. Thorn caught his eye. There was something unspoken between them, an understanding, a moment of connection. "We're a stubborn species," Thorn said. "We don't know how to quit." "Neither do I," Vextal said, "and I'm glad." The hive returned 6 cycles later. They came with a fleet so massive that it blotted out the stars. The Xylothian home world was their target, and they would not be denied. Thorn stood on the bridge of the Valiant, his face a mask of calm. "We knew this day was coming. We've prepared for it. Now it's time to show them what they're up against." The tactical display showed the hive fleet spreading across the void. There were thousands of ships, millions of drones, and at the center of it all was a massive creature, its organic hull pulsing with an energy that seemed to warp reality. "The Queen," Thorn said. "That's their leader. If we can destroy it, the hive will collapse." "Destroy it?" Vextal stared at him. "Admiral, look at that thing. It's twice the size of our entire fleet." "Size isn't everything," Thorn said. "We've got something they don't have. We've got determination." The battle began with a surge of energy. The human fleet opened fire, their weapons cutting into the hive's formation. The Xylothian ships followed suit, their beam weapons slicing through the organic hulls with surgical precision. But the hive didn't stop. They kept coming, their ships crashing into the human lines with relentless ferocity. "We're being overwhelmed," Hayes reported. "Admiral, we can't hold them." "Hold the line," Thorn ordered. "We need more time." "Time for what?" Thorn turned to face the tactical display, his eyes fixed on the Queen. "Time to reach that thing." The Valiant surged forward, her weapons blazing. The hive responded with a fury that was almost incandescent. Ship after ship threw themselves at the flagship, their hulls bursting in brilliant arcs of destruction. But Thorn didn't waver. He stood on the bridge, his hands gripping the console, his eyes fixed on the Queen. "Closer," he said, "closer." "Admiral, we're losing shield integrity," Hayes reported. "We can't take much more." "Then we don't take much more," Thorn said. "We push through." The Valiant shuddered as a blast struck her hull, tearing through the outer armor. Alarms blared on the bridge, but Thorn seemed unruffled. "Device is ready," a technician reported. "We have a clear shot." "Fire," Thorn ordered. The beam shot from the Valiant's forward cannon, cutting through the hive's formation like a knife through flesh. It struck the Queen directly, tearing through its organic hull with devastating power. "Direct hit," Hayes announced. "The Queen is compromised." The Queen let out a psychic scream that echoed through the void. The hive ships began to falter, their movements becoming erratic. The massive creature was dying, and its drones were collapsing with it. "We're winning," Vextal said, "actually winning." But Thorn's expression was grim. "Don't celebrate yet. The Queen is wounded, but it's not dead." He was right. The massive creature was still moving, its organic hull repairing itself even as the beam continued to burn into it. "We need more power," Thorn said. "Divert all energy to the forward cannon." "Admiral, that will leave us defenseless," Hayes protested. "I know," Thorn said. "Do it anyway." The beam intensified, cutting deeper into the Queen's hull. The creature screamed again, its psychic energy washing over the battlefield. The hive ships began to fall apart, their crews dying with their Queen. And then, with a final, shuddering cry, the Queen was gone. Its hull exploded, scattering debris across the void. The hive fleet collapsed, their organic ships drifting aimlessly without their leader. "We did it," Vextal whispered. "We actually did it." Thorn turned to face him. His expression was weary, but there was a light in his eyes that Vextal had never seen before. "Yes," he said, "we did, and now it's over." The battle was over, but the victory had come at a terrible cost. The human fleet was gone. Only the Valiant remained. The Xylothian fleet had been decimated, their ships reduced to floating debris. Vextal walked through the corridors of the Valiant, surveying the damage. The ship had been battered almost beyond repair, but it was still standing, still flying. Thorn sat in his command chair, his face pale with exhaustion. "We lost a lot of good people today," he said. "We won," Vextal said. "That's what matters." Thorn nodded slowly. "Yes, we won, and we'll keep winning for as long as it takes." He stood, his gaze turning toward the viewing window. The void stretched out before them, filled with the wreckage of the Hive fleet. "This isn't the end," Thorn said. "This is just the beginning. There will be other battles, other wars, other enemies, but we'll face them together." "Together," Vextal repeated, "human and Xylothian." "Together," Thorn agreed, "for as long as it takes." The Xylothian home world was saved. The Hive had been defeated, its fleet destroyed, its queen dead, but the cost had been immeasurable. Thorn stood on the observation deck of the Valiant, gazing at the world below. It was beautiful, a jewel in the darkness, but it was scarred, burned, wounded. Vextal approached, his footsteps echoing on the deck. "The leadership wants to meet with you. They want to thank you." "I don't need their thanks," Thorn said. "I need them to understand what's coming next." Vextal frowned. "The Hive is defeated, there's nothing else coming." "You're wrong," Thorn said. "The Hive was just the beginning. There are others out there, other threats, other species that will try to destroy us. We have to be ready." He turned to face Vextal. "That's what it means to be humanity, not just to survive, but to protect, to defend, to fight for those who can't fight for themselves." Vextal nodded slowly. "I understand, I've seen it, I've seen you." "Then you know what I'm going to ask," Thorn said. "I need your help. I need the Xylothians to stand with us, to fight beside us, to be our allies." "You have it," Vextal said. "You'll always have it." The ceremony was held in the great hall of the Xylothian capital. Thorn stood at the center of the room, surrounded by the leaders of the Xylothian Confederation. They were all there, elders, generals, scientists. Even the common people had gathered, their scaled faces filled with awe and gratitude. "Admiral Thorn," the leader of the Confederation said, "you came to us when we were at our weakest. You saved us from an enemy we couldn't defeat. You gave us hope." Thorn inclined his head. "I did what was right, what any human would do." "But you are not any human," the leader said. "You are a legend, a symbol. You are the living proof that humanity is not a fallen species. You are proof that humanity is still fighting, still surviving, still winning." Thorn said nothing. He simply stood there, accepting the praise with the humility of a man who had seen too much to be moved by words. "We want to honor you," the leader continued. "We want to build a monument to you, to your fleet, to the sacrifice you and your crew made for us." "Build it for the fallen," Thorn said. "Build it for the ones who didn't make it. I'm just the one who survived." Later that night, Vextal found Thorn on the observation deck. The human was alone, gazing at the stars. "I've been thinking," Vextal said, "about what you said about the future." "What about it?" "Will you stay here with us? Will you continue to lead?" Thorn was silent for a long moment. "I don't know," he said. "I've been fighting for so long, I don't know what it means to stop." "You could learn," Vextal said. "You could find peace." Thorn laughed. "Peace? I don't think that's in my nature. I was born to fight. I was born to lead. That's who I am." "Then that's who you'll be," Vextal said. "And we'll be there with you, for as long as it takes." The Valiant left Xyloth the following cycle. Thorn stood on the bridge, gazing at the world that had become his second home. Hayes was beside him, her expression unreadable. "We have a new mission," Thorn said. "There are other threats out there, other species that need help. We're going to find them, we're going to protect them." "And then?" Hayes asked. "And then we'll rest," Thorn said. When the galaxy is safe, when the darkness has been pushed back, we'll rest, and we'll remember, and we'll be grateful. Grateful for what? For the fight, Thorn said. For the chance to make a difference, for the privilege of being human. Vextal watched from the doorway. He saw something in Thorn's expression that he'd never seen before. It wasn't hope. It wasn't peace, but it was close. "Admiral," he said, "where are we going?" Thorn turned to face him. His eyes were bright, filled with purpose. "We're going to the edge of the galaxy," he said. "There's something out there, something important. We need to find it before someone else does." And then we'll see," Thorn said. "The legend doesn't end, it just keeps going. That's what it means to be human." The Valiant surged forward, her engines burning bright. The Zalothian home world faded behind them, a memory of hope in an endless sea of darkness. Thorn stood at the helm, his hand on the control console. For the first time in 20,000 years, he felt something he'd thought he'd lost forever. He felt like he was home. The end.